Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing, coming to you with another mixed media-ish kind of tutorial. Making some tags for the fairy magic journals that I'm making. So I thought I would go ahead and turn the camera on and bring you along for the ride. Just showing you here my supplies. I originally was talking during this video, but it became a little bit too broken and too long, so I decided to go ahead and do a voiceover. So while you're watching my talking hands, I'm going to talk about the supplies that I'm using today. So I'm using this Distress Crackle paste, which I was not real thrilled with the results because it says it's translucent, but it actually in parts of the project was white, and I was unhappy with that, but it works out okay. Still gives some beautiful texture, so no loss there at all. So I've got some tags from Ranger. Those are those manila kinds of tags. A couple pots of water because we are going to be doing some watercolor here. I'm using my Rembrandt paint palette here. This was very high-end watercolors that I purchased probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I absolutely love them. And they're just right for being on, in my workspace. There's not a big old gargantuan size palette, which I do have those as well. So we're going to be doing some mixed media work, as I mentioned, by using some book pages on the base of these tags and then using the white tissue paper, and we're going to crumple those up and glue them on with Liquitex Fluid Matte Medium. I've got a couple of my good watercolor brushes, an acrylic brush for applying the matte medium. I did initially pull out some flower fairies. I will not be using those after all, so I decided to go ahead and change gears, as you'll see as we move along through the video. So I'm just getting a piece of parchment out just to protect my work surface and give me something to kind of move this stuff around on. So I'm going to go ahead and start by adhering the book pages with my Liquitex Fluid Matte Medium. I'm going to go ahead and turn the music on and just let you watch this while I tear these down as well as get them glued on. Talking a little bit there about my camera. So I have a webcam, which is beautiful. It works great, but my monitor, I have a mini Mac computer, so my monitor, the display is opposite of what I am actually doing, so that's kind of what I was doing with my hands there. So again, there's going to be some kind of unexplainable things in this video. It was a couple of days ago also that I filmed it. There's lots of things going on in my world right now, some good things. So for those of you who've been following my some of my medical challenges, I had shared previously that I have been diagnosed with hyperparathyroid disease. So I did finally get the call that they are going to do the surgery and go ahead and take care of whatever glands are causing me the problems. So I will be having some surgery, hopefully in the near future. So hopefully that's going to help my health overall. I really believe that it will. A lot of my symptoms are appear to be directly related to the parathyroid disease. So fingers crossed and many prayers being spoken. So yeah, it's been a busy bit of time. So normally I will, if I do a video like that, I'm editing the same day that I film it, and that helps me keep a little bit more succinct in terms of what I was doing, especially if I have to do a voiceover. So I apologize, it might be a little bit broken, but I hope that in the bigger picture you'll enjoy the process itself. So I'm going to go ahead and let you continue to watch as I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, and then we'll be right back. just about done trimming these down. I am going to sew around the edges of the tags, but I will do that after I get the tissue adhered. So we're going to do that here in a moment. And again, I will be using my Liquitex Fluid Matte Medium to put that tissue paper on. We're going to spend a little bit of time crumpling it up and getting it nice and wrinkly so that it's very vintagey and mixed media-ish on these tags when we are done. So I'm going to go ahead again and just turn the music on and let you watch the process. So when you are using an acrylic brush to do this, you do kind of want to be a little bit gentle. It looks like I'm being pretty rough, but that's just because the video is a little bit sped up, but I'm not. So, and there I'm just kind of talking with my hands and, well, originally talking with my voice, how I'm going to wait until that is completely dry before I trim the edges off. But it is important, if you don't want that tissue paper to tear, to go ahead and just be very gentle as you apply the matte medium on the top of the tissue paper. You could also do this easily with Mod Podge or some other white, like a white glue, or not a white glue, something that dries transparent is what I'm really trying to get at. But I just prefer the Liquitex Fluid Matte Medium because I'm a mixed media artist, and so that's my go-to for this kind of effect. So that's why I'm using it. You certainly don't have to. I'm just working on this last one, again crumbling that up really well with my hands, and then because we want a lot of wrinkles, and you'll be able to see in the photos at the end of the video how much wrinkles we really got. It was incredible. So the texture on these bases was beautiful. At one point in the process, I did go ahead and take some pictures before I put any of the embellishments on the top of these tags, just so that I would have them for future bases, for tags or whatever. So I did take some photos, which is always a good idea if you are mid-process and you're at a layer that you really love. Go ahead and take a picture. So we're going to go ahead and dry this, and here we go. So that went really fast. So while I was off camera, I did go ahead and make sure those were nice and dry, stitched around all of them using a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. I will punch those holes later, and in the photos at the end, you will be able to see how I finished those off. And here I was just kind of reading about the instructions on this crackle paste because it's not a product that I use. I prefer DecoArt crackle paint when I'm using that for mixed media. And this was, again, as I mentioned in the intro, it did not perform the way that I expected. My understanding of translucent is it's not completely transparent, but it also should not dry white. Unless I am completely bonkers over that. I could be. It's very, very possible. But because some areas it's clear, almost clear, and others maybe where it's thicker is where it stayed a little bit wider. But I think in this case it really was an added texture here for these tags that made them really beautiful in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn the music on and let you watch as I just apply this crackle paste to these three bases. And I apologize, guys, I'm not sure what I was talking about here. I think just the fact that I believed that it was going to dry translucent and it was going to be okay. But I apologize, it was a couple of days ago when I filmed, so yeah. it is what it is. You know what I always say, perfection is not at play in the studio, and that includes this instance where, you know, I filmed a couple days ago, and you know, things fall out of my mind very quickly. That's probably a combination of age, but also it is a major side effect for the parathyroid disease is memory issues and just a hard time. Just the thinking process is really difficult. So I hope that you'll extend grace there. My videos are not always like this, so I hope that you won't run too fast and too far. We're going to go ahead and give these a dry, and then we'll be back for the next step. And here we go. They're nice and dry. And so as you can probably see, there are areas that are whiter, and then they're whiter, and then there are areas that look more translucent. So I guess maybe it's the thickness of the different parts on the tags. Where it was thicker, it stayed whiter. I'm not sure, but it is okay. As I mentioned before, they turned out gorgeous. So we're going to go ahead and get going with the watercolors, and these are the images that I decided to use instead of the flower fairies. There are 3 of the door images from the My Porch Prints kits. I'm using the Fairy Magic kit and the Fairy Tea Party, and absolutely phenomenal images. You guys have got to check them out. They will be, all supplies will be linked over on my blog, and a link to the blog can be found in the description box below. So I am again using my Rembrandt watercolors. I'm going to go ahead and get some things prepped here. I like to so I don't know, I'm reaching over. I don't know why I tell you guys that stuff. So I like reach my body over in front of the camera, because a lot of my go-to grab and go kinds of things are in front of me, not to the side of me. So I don't know why I feel the need to do that sometimes, but I do periodically. So I'm looking at these images to kind of think about what colors I want to pull out of the watercolor paints. And this is paint that I had used before on a different project. They do end up being paints that I ended up using in this project, but I always like to start out with fresh watercolor. I just feel like it gives a better look. Now in this case it would not matter because it's mixed media effect, and it's just a whole different process, but you know, I do what I do and it works for me. So I'm trying to arrange this so that you guys can see the palette as well as see my mixing area. I am spritzing all of the pans with my spray bottle just to get them kind of going and ready to be kind of mixed and taken out of the palette there with my brush. So looking at a couple of different greens there. I do end up adding a different color that I don't really point out, which is just a straight up turquoise, which was my primary color that I used. But you'll be able to see that, and I'll talk about each color as I go through this so that you can, if you want to match the colors to get the results, you'll know at least what the color name is. These are artist watercolors, so typically the root name of the color goes across all brands of artist grade watercolor, in case you want to look it up. But yeah, that's a whole nother science there that I won't go into. I won't bore you with that. As far as like the pigment numbers and all that, you can cross-reference, and it's quite a thing. So and again, I'm getting water here. I've got a clean water bucket and a dirty water so that I can keep my paint nice and fresh. And then when I'm going to dip into another paint color that is not in the same color family, I will rinse my brush off and then get clean water for the next bit. So I'm taking a turquoise and one of those greens that I pointed out in the beginning, and I am mixing those together because I thought, well, that's probably going to make a pretty cool color. So as I do the voiceover, I'm going to look at my swatch here and tell you what I'm using. So that is turquoise, and I believe that was primary green, and then I'm also going to be using quinacridone rose and ultramarine deep. And I believe I came in with a brown. I think my sepia brown is what I'm using. And also I believe I used gamboge, which is a yellow. So again, I will try to talk about that as we go along. For the purposes of journal making, junk journal kind of techniques, the paints that you use are not going to really matter. Just pick the colors that you love, and just keep in mind that if you don't want to get mud, you don't want to mix colors that are on the opposite side of the color wheels as each other. So you wouldn't want to mix purple and yellow because you're going to get brown. You don't want to mix red and green because you're going to get brown. So those are opposites on the color wheel. You can mix color friends. So they're colors that are in the same color family. So if they're next to each other or close to each other on the color wheel, then you're good to go. You can pretty much do anything that you want. But when you start getting farther and farther away on the color wheel from the friends area, you're going to get really muddy colors, or you're going to get colors that look really dull and boring, and are not as transparent as well. So again, starting out, I believe, you know what, I think it was cad yellow light that I used there. I'm so sorry, rather than the gamboge, but it's basically just a yellow. In this case, it wouldn't matter what kind of yellow. If yellow is one of the colors you want, use whatever yellow you have. You could completely use a Crayola watercolor. You could use watercolor sticks. You could use gelatos. There's a lot of options here. Just play around. This is a great way to see the magic of watercolor, which is my number one passion. Like, I fell in love with watercolor, as I mentioned in my Get to Know Me video about 6 years ago, and I absolutely love it. So that next color that I went in with was I think I went in straight with the turquoise. I don't think I dipped into that mixture yet. And then I'm just trying to get some brown because I do want to bring in some darker color in here. And the other thing you want to keep in mind when working with watercolors is they are always going to dry lighter. They're always going to dry lighter. So when you're applying them, they can seem almost overly bold, but wait, because when they dry, they will be lighter. So try to hold on and wait and see what happens when they dry. And as you probably know, watercolor is obviously a water medium. So anything that you put on top of it has the potential of moving that watercolor. So it's not permanent in that regard. But it works out for this kind of technique. You just want to be thinking about it being reactivated. So we're going to go ahead and move on. I did a quick dry, my apologies, and here's a close-up. Sorry I didn't hold that up longer, you guys. Just dabbing it a little bit with my towel there because some of it felt a little bit bold. And there we go, there's a close-up. So really gorgeous. And I wish that I had kind of gone a little bit slower here so that you could see, but I'm loving the the blue there. That's the turquoise, and just kind of that spotty color I think is really, really beautiful. And you'll be able to see some of this in the photos at the end. I will make sure I include some of the photos that I took before I actually put the doors and the ephemera decorating bits on the front of the tag so that you guys can see that more up close. Doing some splattering there with that turquoise watercolor paint, and we're going to set that one aside and move on to the second one. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the music on because I'm using the same colors and I'm using the same process. And so one of them does go a little bit psychedelic, had way too many colors in it, but I do rectify that by coming in with some brown, and brown will tend to neutralize all those colors and make them a little more friendly. So just keep that in mind as you watch. Just doing a switcheroo there with my palette. I realized that I kept crossing over, which kind of blocks your guys' view as I'm doing this process. So my apologies as I I make effort to readjust here. It was a challenge because I wanted you to be able to see the colors in the palette, but I also want you to see the mixing area. And so it's one of the problems with doing watercolor, any kind of watercolor stuff on a camera, is just the the area that you're working in. So I'll go ahead and let you continue watching. This is actually the quinacridone rose, and this is the tag that ended up being pretty psychedelic. It would have been okay at this point, but I came in also, I believe, with the turquoise, and that was just a little over the top. But again, I do balance that out by bringing in some brown, so doing a little bit more splatters there as well. And because that's a more leans towards blue versus green, when it mixes with the yellow, it's making more of a greener green, not a turquoise green. So that's what you're seeing there. And this is why it became kind of too busy and too many colors all in one space. But you can watch as I move through that and fix that. And this one I am starting out primarily with the turquoise, and I keep this one a little bit more basic than the other ones. I believe I just introduced a little bit more brown to this one, and I don't think I did a whole lot more to it, but we will see together. So I never like doing a voiceover. The only time I'm comfortable with it is if I'm doing my Sunday's Art of Truth and I'm doing a more elaborate kind of mixed media project. I'm happy to do a voiceover because I'm prepared to do a voiceover. This one, I was not preparing to do a voiceover. I was talking as I was doing this video, but it just was like I couldn't really cut it down. I couldn't really trim it up, so I decided to go ahead and just remove all that audio and do a voiceover. So, and my mistake, this was just a sap green, which is one of my favorite greens in watercolor. And so I'm doing that first, and then I believe I'm going to introduce the brown. There we go. So this brown is going to neutralize and kind of it's going to change the color of both the turquoise and the sap green. It's going to make it a little bit more natural, rather than being as vibrant as it is on its own. So I really love that about watercolor, the ability to mix paints, to make colors that you want, or to push colors back, take away some of their vibrancy, is always a possibility. So I do still plan on doing a watercolor. It's not going to be a tutorial, it's just going to be me doing a watercolor on camera, and if you guys want to watch, you're certainly welcome to do that. I know it's outside of the realm of a lot of what my subscribers are doing in their artistic journey, but I've had some people interested in that, so I'm going to go ahead and do it, and it will be it'll probably be largely sped up because a watercolor project is just very time consuming. And so there's just a close-up of that. Really, really beautiful. I was super happy with how that turned out. I am dabbing it a little bit just to, again, try to to lighten it up a little bit and make it not quite so busy. And I believe we do some more changes to this. I think I'm going to come in with some more splatters here. I'm just bringing those back into view. I think they're very, very pretty. The one on the right is still very, very busy. So kind of just looking at what I want, which doors I want to put on which tags. So there are a couple more steps here that we'll talk about here in a moment. Yeah, so this one, I went ahead and came in with the brown, I believe it's the sepia, and this really helped this tag to not feel quite so busy. The base was just way too crazy and just wasn't pleasing to look at all. So, and you can see how that brown is helping. And in the final pictures at the end, you'll be able to see that quinacridone rose is still going to show it's really quite beautiful, but not quite, it's not overtaking the space. So, and again, adding brown to that tag in the middle as well. And I believe I do add some to the last one. Here we're going to give it a good dry there. I forgot about that, guys. And so here's a little bit better close-up of all of the colors where they landed. Really, really beautiful. I even love that white from the crackle paste. It was not what I expected, but it was okay. And then the close-up of this one again. I can't even tell you which one is my favorite. Some of them are my favorite because of the texture. Some are my favorite because of the color. And you can see that the crinkly tissue paper that we used is what's creating those kind of hills and valleys in that base, which is really beautiful. This one was really, really cool. Love it. Camera was struggling to focus. I believe here is where I'm going to come in with one of my favorite paints is my golden fluid acrylic in iridescent gold fine, and I'm just going to use my finger as I have in many mixed media projects in the past, and I'm going to go ahead and use my finger and just rub that over all of the surface. I also pulled a couple of acrylic inks. One is sepia and the other one is called marine blue, which is along the lines of the turquoise, and it's an acrylic ink, so it's not gonna it's gonna just add a little bit more vibrancy of dots of splatters to the bases when we get to that point. So again, here is I'm applying the gold paint just using my fingers, and it's just catching on all of the raised texture, which is absolutely stunning. One of my favorite techniques is using gold to highlight the texture. The three-dimensional texture is just absolutely gorgeous. Yummy, yummy, yummy. So I'm going to just go ahead and turn the music on for this part. And I am applying this with a really light touch, so I'm like almost like kissing it with my finger. I'm not really pressing into the base, just really just kind of skimming the top of all that texture, and your finger naturally catches on the raised bits, which is what makes it so beautiful. So you don't want to like really push hard, and I wouldn't advise using a brush if you want the result that you're going to see here in the when these are finished. I'm not going to really get gold down into those valleys because I'm just skipping my finger over the top layer of the texture. Now I'm going to come in with the inks. So I'm going to use the marine blue primarily, but I think one of the tags I do go ahead and do splatters of the sepia on there, and the reason why, because I know that the ink is going to be permanent, so it's not going to shift, it's not going to do anything that unexpected, which is why I love to use it for splatters, because it's permanent, it's not gonna do anything. So yeah, I'm gonna move that paper. So the whole time I was working on this project, I was like, why did I put that parchment? Because it just slides all over because I've got a glass mat on my table. So it just kind of just goes everywhere, and I probably wouldn't do that again. I just stick to just using my glass mat. I've got this from Amazon and I absolutely love it. Everything comes off of it. I use a little bit of rubbing alcohol and everything will come off of it. It's epic. I love it. So yeah, splattering this is the marine blue, which is similar to the turquoise, and that's what I'm using for my splatters on these two, and then I think I'm going to use the brown on the other one, but I'm going to let you watch for a minute. And this is the sepia. Not sure what I was talking about. Probably the fact that I wasted all that ink. So when I'm just playing on my own, I would grab a journal or something and I would kind of sop that ink up and use it. But I just, my studio is set up in such a way that when I'm filming, I don't have access to a lot of things. And so I probably should just get an old journal or a couple pages and just stick them in the drawer next to me so that I have those and I can just pull them out easily to be able to sop up some of this medium so that I'm not wasting it. So that's always my idea, but then I always forget. So, and then I just made sure that those were nice and dry. And here's a close-up with the gold. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely amazing. I love it. It just makes my heart happy. This one really was really pretty because it actually brings out the yellow in the base, the yellow watercolor paint that we used, and just brings that out, pulls it out, and I love this one as well. Looks a little bit more earthy to me, so all three of them are just gorgeous though. Super happy. Just inking the edges of my little fairy houses here. These are just, I just did a rough fussy cut of different doors that were in the kit. They were either on journal pages or pieces that were designed for journal pages or other things, cards and tags and such. So I just kind of I do that with kits. I use them the way that I want to use them. You don't have to use a tag for a tag. You don't have to use a journal page for a journal page. You don't have to use tickets as the same way. I mean, you can use your imagination and use them however you choose. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to glue these on. I'm going to be using my not my fluid matte medium, oh my goodness, my Fabri-Tac, and I'm just pulling some of my coffee dyed gauze out of my basket. I'm going to put gauze under each of the images, which really made them look really woodsy, and I think it was the perfect touch to finish these off. So you can see that I do have threads hanging off each of the right hand corners of the tags. I do end up cutting those off. I always think it's a great idea, but you're not going to see them because those tags are going to go in pockets. So next time I might have my threads at the top so then I could leave them on and enjoy that effect, because I really love it, but it doesn't make any sense if they're just tucked into a pocket. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just let you watch there and get these all adhered, and then we will come back and put some sentiments on there, and then we'll be done. I like to use a paper towel when I use Fabri-Tac, especially because I can just lay it down. I don't get my fingers all sticky, and it doesn't pull up the image that I'm actually trying to adhere. So I'm using Fabri-Tac because there's so much texture underneath these where these papers are going to go. I feel like it's the best choice for making sure that they're very solid and in place and they're not going to go anywhere. So of course, use what you have. I know a lot of people don't like Fabri-Tac for a variety of reasons. I love it, absolutely love it, but it doesn't bother me in terms of the smell, and it doesn't a lot of people I know have some allergic reaction to it on their hands. I don't have any trouble, so I love it. Just finishing up this last one. This one I'm going to use a bigger piece of the gauze because the door is a little bit smaller. So I want to really make sure that it pops out and that we've got a good base on the tag as well. Not a base on the tag, well, a base layer of the gauze. Goodness gracious. It's a work day. I also, I got off early because I had a doctor's appointment. So, so I've been a little bit running around, finishing up, just running some errands and haven't really slowed down much all day. So I am a little frazzled, a little tired. So my heart rate is going crazy today. Even though I'm not afraid of having the surgery, obviously my body is processing that. So there's just a close-up of them glued down. Aren't they gorgeous? So again, this is for the Fairy Magic Journals. You can check out the supply list over on my blog. A link to the blog is in the description box. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for stopping by.